America's best days are yet to come. That's because conservatives like you know and live the values our great country was built on. The Heritage Foundation exists to make sure your voice is heard in the D.C. swamp each day, shining the light on a bright future. The Heritage Foundation stands for your values and won't give up the fight because they know you never will. Paid for by the Heritage Foundation.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 1-877-381-3811. This is our last program of the year. And I want to wish you all final nights of Hanukkah, wonderful Hanukkah, Merry Christmas next week. Really a wonderful time of the year, isn't it? And we will spend time with family, as you are and will. And that's a wonderful thing, too. Let's see what was sent to me here on True Social from the president. Because of ISIS' vicious killing of brave American patriots in Syria, whose beautiful souls I welcomed home to American soil earlier this week in a very dignified ceremony, I'm hereby announcing that the United States is inflicting very serious retaliation, just as I promised, on the murderers, terrorists, and the responsible. We are striking very strongly against ISIS strongholds in Syria, place soaked in blood, which has many problems, but one that has a bright future if ISIS can be eradicated. Government of Syria, led by a man who's working very hard to bring greatness back to Syria, and is fully in support. All terrorists who are evil enough to attack Americans are hereby warned. You will be hit harder than you have ever been hit before if you in any way attack or threaten the USA, President Trump. And that's the way you deal with terrorists. That's the way you deal with them. That's the way Israel deals with them. That's the way you have to deal with them. So I would just point that out, you know. When Israel's going after terrorists, Hamas terrorists, they haven't stopped being terrorists, by the way. The fact that they're brutalizing Palestinians and executing them and it gets almost no attention is revealing of something. But that's how you deal with terrorists. And so it's not breaking a ceasefire when you deal with terrorists, and it's certainly not breaking anything else. They need to be eliminated. And I got to say this, for all the talk about Ukraine is losing, Ukraine this, Ukraine that, Ukraine is fighting. They are fighters. I mean, Russia's paying a very, very heavy price. Ukraine, of course, but Russia was supposed to be able to mop them up, right? Emily Crane, New York Post, Ukraine drones blow up a Russian oil tanker in unprecedented special operation, dramatic video. It is dramatic, isn't it, Mr. Producer? It is a massive, massive explosion. The out-of-area operation marks the first time Kiev has struck in neutral waters. Excuse me, cholera. Until now, Ukraine Security services only claim responsibility for drone attacks in the Black Sea. Well, what are they supposed to do? They need to go on the offensive. That's exactly what they're doing. The Kendale vessel, which was empty at the time, is said to have suffered critical damage. Ukraine insisted the strike posed no threat to the environment, claiming the vessel wasn't carrying cargo at the time. The tanker had unloaded oil at the Indian port of Sika earlier this month and was en route back when the strike was carried out, according to officials. Yeah, they blew this thing really sky high, this Russian tanker, and I don't know what Putin expects. But these people clearly aren't going quietly. They clearly have no intention of going quietly. They claim they're not going to go quietly, and they shouldn't. I'm all for Ukraine. I'm on Team Ukraine. Yes, I am. Muslim Bondi Beach hero who disarmed terrorist branded a traitor in Arab media for saving Jewish lives. Well, of course. Of course. The heroic Syrian-Austrian man who disarmed one of the terrorists firing at a crowd of Hanukkah revelers in Australia's Bondi Beach has been slammed as a traitor by many Palestinian commentators for saving Jewish lives. There must never be, there can never be, there will never be a so-called Palestinian state. After the West Bank-based, a.k.a. Judea and Samaria-based, Ramallah news outlet shared a story about the life-saving actions taken by Ahmad al-Ahmad, 43. Many of the outlet's readers trashed the Muslim hero and prayed that he would not recover from his serious injuries, according to Palestinian Media Watch. Now, see, this is the thing. This is why I talk over and over again about the Islamists who murder non-conforming, non-fundamentalist Muslims. Murder them, slaughter them. Because this is what they think, this is who they are. His heroism served as a feel-good story for most of the world. And it goes on, but we don't need to read that because you already know what he did. And he's going to receive, and this is a good thing, let's see here, he's going to receive a $1.6 million check donated by 43,000 supporters. Let's see, he's been given a check for actually $2.5 million, modestly asking if he was actually worthy of the support from tens of thousands of strangers. He was given the oversized check in Australian dollars, equivalent to about 165 million American dollars. It's very, very impressive, this man. Very, very impressive. And, of course, the Islamists hate him. If the Islamists had their way, they'd kill him. That would be, among others, Palestinians. And one of the ISIS-inspired terrorists, Rajid Akram, 50, was shot dead by police, and we know about that. Yeah, everybody saw this man. He was absolutely fantastic. And, you know, this is why when you look at what took place on that subway in New York, a man stepping in and trying to help people and save people, and he wound up Penny, who was a fantastic hero, and the person he subdued wound up dying, and then they try to charge him. It was outrageous. We want men and women who will stand up, especially men, to protect their fellow man, that is, their fellow citizen, or anybody, for that matter. And that's very important, too. By the way, speaking of important, I've got two important Life, Liberty, and Levin shows this weekend. But I'm very focused now on my opening statement on Sunday. I taped the opening statement on Sunday. I taped it Thursday morning. And let me just give you a little insight into this. Early in American history, before America was a country of United States, Christians and Jews lived together and worked together. Not that there was an overwhelming number of Jews, but there were Jews. And They shared a value system. They shared a belief system. And when the Revolutionary War began, there was a man by the name of Solomon. And I want to tell you about this man and his impact on the Revolutionary War. And I want to get into this a little bit more with you, because as Christians, you should be very proud. As Jews, you should be very proud. And moreover, as Americans, you should be very proud of how this nation was founded on the Judeo-Christian belief system and by Jews and Christians. But there's no question about it. This nation, essentially, was founded by Christians. A Christian nation relying on Judeo-Christian principles and also relying on Jews for assistance at key times who were very patriotic as well. And we should be celebrating these things. We should be teaching these things. So we'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Folks, I have a question for you. Do you believe America's best days are still ahead? With the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence coming up in less than a year, my friends at the Heritage Foundation are taking stock of the current situation, and they need your input. They've launched a survey on America's future to gauge how Americans feel right now about where we are as a nation and where we're headed in the next 250 years. You know, for decades, your American values have been under attack, but now, with President Trump's administration in office, we have an opportunity to turn the tide and usher in a new golden age for America. But the Heritage Foundation needs to hear from you. What policies do patriots like you most care about? What do you believe are the defining principles of America? What legacy do you believe we should pass on to the next generation? Please visit heritage.org/Levin today and share your feedback and help shape the future of America. That's heritage.org/LEVIN. Paid for by the Heritage Foundation. Solomon, who we've talked about before, helped finance the American Revolution. And a migrant, as many were back then, from Poland. He immediately joined the Revolutionary War. He'd been captured multiple times by the British and served in these prison boats that were horrendous. And that's one of the reasons he died when he was a young man, 44 years old. That said, he not only raised funds, he gave many of his resources to the Revolutionary War. He died penniless because the government never paid him back, and he also provided finances to help some of the greatest founders of the time, Madison and others, and they didn't have the funds to pay him back. He died a pauper, a hero who was known at the time but is not known today. And history ought to be taught. But I just want to make it clear, Washington, Adams, Jefferson, Madison, among many others, but those are four big men involved in this nation's founding. They were all very, very familiar and versed in what was called the Hebrew Bible. They studied it, they knew it backwards and forwards, and it influenced their views, whether it was the Declaration or the Constitution. Obviously, Jefferson wasn't there, but he supported it, and had a major impact. How do we know? Because they said so. Washington famously wrote a letter and visited to, I guess, the oldest synagogue, if not one of them, in Rhode Island. And one of the things he told them in a letter was that in America and under his stewardship, the children of Abraham would be protected and could live like all other people. Now, this was a remarkable statement at a time like this. Remarkable statement. John Adams lavished praise on the Jews, who he called repeatedly the chosen people. Don't look at me, I'm just telling you what he said. Jefferson was first among equals in promoting religious liberty, both in the colonies, in Virginia, as an example, as well as pressed it hard in Maryland after he retired from the presidency. And he was a big believer in religious liberty. And Madison, too. And this is why we have our First Amendment. You don't establish a state religion, but you don't, interfere with the exercise of religion either. And that's what these men believe. Now, at the Constitutional Convention, all the delegates were Christian. Different denominations, for sure. All of them were Christian. At the Second Continental Congress, where the Declaration of Independence was voted on and was written and voted on, all the delegates were Christian. All of them. Now, it is said, correctly, that Jefferson and Franklin were deists, but they were Christians. A deist simply means, it can mean many things, but it is a general matter. It means that they weren't exactly sure what God's role was in individual affairs and so forth, but that there was in fact a God who did in fact have an enormous impact on humanity. So this nation was founded by Christians. There is simply no debate. And it's a very, very good thing that it was. Because Christianity, both during the pre-revolutionary and revolutionary period and constitutional period and today, is a beneficent faith. It is a tolerant faith. It is a humane faith. And that's why minorities in America are able to live freely, religious minorities. And I've told you this before. God bless the Christians. God bless the Christians. And I say this as a Jew. I also know that our Declaration, the expressions in our Declaration, the references to God, divine providence, and so forth, come from the combination of the Judeo-Christian belief system and values. That Christianity was heavily influenced by Judaism, and who knew it? Washington, Adams, Jefferson, Madison, and most of the others. So when you hear people today like Tucker Carlson and others trying to bifurcate the two, this is a new attack, not just on Jews, but on Christians. And if you listen to some of the great pastors of our day now, like John Hagee and many, many others, Pastor Evans and so forth, but there are others, many others, they repudiate what Carlson says as blasphemy. Blasphemy. And they're right. And I want to continue on this for a little bit, given the fact that it's Hanukkah and Christmas is next week. We'll be right back. We're coming upon the 250th birthday of the United States, and it has me thinking, what will America look like 250 years from now? My friends at the Heritage Foundation want to know what you think. What policies should America prioritize? What principles should carry us into the decades ahead? As America enters a new golden age, Heritage recognizes that this is the time to take stock and to be intentional about how we shape the future of America. And they can't do it without your input. So please go to heritage.org/LEVIN and let them know what you think is important. Without patriots like you stepping up and speaking up for what you believe in, America as we know it can't survive for another 250 years. Please go to heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/LEVIN. Take the survey on America's future. This survey takes less than 10 minutes to complete, but it is critical for making sure that the America we pass on to future generations is an America we're proud of. Go to heritage.org/Levin today. That's heritage.org/LEVIN. Paid for by the Heritage Foundation.
Mark Levin, America's passionately cerebral voice. Talk with that voice now. 877-381-3811.
You've heard me say for some time now that Americanism is incompatible with Islamism. And many people have cited Charlie Kirk for that. We've been talking about that a long time. Charlie was a big fan of this show. Americanism and Islamism are incompatible. If you read On Power, I actually say it right there, and I don't have it in front of me. I think it's chapter 4 or 5. And this is what I want to get to. Islamism is not compatible with American Judeo-Christian foundational principles. And as I explain in the book, and as I make that clear in the book, and as I've talked about for years on this program, Judaism and Christianity, while people obviously practice their faith, live by their faith, what does their faith tell them? You see, the issue with Islamism is Islamism, as Zuhdi Jasser puts it, he calls it political Islamism. Islamism is not purely about faith. Islamism is also about how you're supposed to run a society. Literally, how you're supposed to run a society. So the Quran is filled with rules and laws, not for your own practice, but Sharia courts, the rules about marriage, and goes on and on and on. Christianity and Judaism have some of that, but it's not about issues of governance for an entire society. It's about beliefs. Beliefs. And the point is that you practice a faith, you practice beliefs, you pass that on to your children and your grandchildren. But you don't turn to your neighbor and say, this is what this says, and so if you live your life like X, and if you don't treat your wife like this, and you don't have this many children, and you don't do this, and you don't do that, then you're blasphemous. This is a massive distinction between Christianity, Judaism, and Islamism. A massive distinction. So Islamists insist on the imposition of these viewpoints, of these beliefs, on Christians, Jews, other Muslims, and everybody else. And everybody else. That's why it's incompatible. And I explain it in detail on Power, but we've talked about it in detail here over the years as well. Christianity preaches tolerance. Judaism, the same thing. Now, what do I mean by that? I just said in the last segment, I love this stuff. Love it. I just said that this nation was founded by Christians. And Judeo-Christian values and beliefs undergird our founding. They undergird our Declaration. They undergird our Constitution. They undergird our civil society. And yet, people from all backgrounds, all races, all creeds, all ethnicities, and all religions can live in America and practice their faith and so forth and so on, and do. Not so in Qatar. Not so in Saudi Arabia. Not so in Egypt. Not so, and the list is a long one. Now, there are Muslim countries that have embraced the Reformation and reform, like Indonesia, which is the largest Muslim country on the face of the earth. And there's over 50. I've heard it said there's 57 Muslim countries. I don't have time to Google it, but something of that sort. And they come in different varieties, different governments. The vast majority of which, however, are not democratic. Because if you believe in the 7th century sort of barbarian system if you reject the Enlightenment, then you must, theoretically, if you're a fundamentalist, impose your views on others, because only then are you doing God's will. Only then will the Messiah appear. That is not Christianity or Judaism. It's not. As this is factual. And so when I say that Islam, I'm not talking about all Muslims, obviously, but when I say Islam is incompatible with Americanism, it's a fact. Look at Texas. We have Islamists, imams, trying to create their own countries within a state, and supports segregation, if you will. Only people who agree should be allowed to live in that community. We're talking about outside of Plano, Texas, and in Houston and so forth and so on. They're not the only places. Dearbornistan is heading in that direction in a very fast and significant way. In a very fast and significant way. So when Tucker Carlson, at Turning Point USA, says, I'm a Christian, and then proceeds to smear Christians, and then proceeds to candy coat Islamism, he should be totally and completely rejected. And as much as he says there is no such thing as Judeo-Christian values, which of course is lunacy, he's an ignoramus. But that aside, he's striking at the heart of our republic. That is, against it. Against it. You see, you can't just attack Jewish values without attacking Christian values, and vice versa. And vice versa. And that's why he's an anti-Semite in my view, and he attacks Jews, and he's a Christian basher because he knows that you can't bifurcate Judeo and Christian when we're talking about Judeo-Christian values and beliefs. Obviously, there's different practices, obvious different beliefs in the Messiah. Okay, but that's not what I'm talking about. That's not what I'm talking about. This is why and he's not alone, he's attacking now not just Jews, but what he calls Christian Zionists. And there are Christian Zionists. These are Christians who believe in the Holy Land and the Old Testament as well as the New Testament. Christianity, that's your Bible. That's your Bible. Now, I'm not proselytizing. I don't pretend to be a rabbi or a pastor or a priest or what have you, but I know what I'm talking about when it comes to the philosophical and the practical. I really do. This is why Islamists can never be assimilated into the American culture. This is why they never want to be assimilated into the American culture. You see some of these people, these leftists, who embrace them and promote them because their objective is the same. No, not the imposition of Islam on the entire population. No, the destruction of the West. The destruction of America, the Constitution, and the Republican system. In this, there's overlay. In this, there's camaraderie. There's collusion. And they'll figure out how to work it all out at the end if they succeed, which they won't. But if they succeed, but that's beside the point. So 7th century barbarianism or barbarism is incompatible with a civil society. This is why I have been leading the charge condemning Qatar. This is why I have been leading the charge telling you it's incompatible. This is why I have been leading the charge to explain the fusion of Marxism and Islamism would be the destruction of America. And when I was talking about this, nobody was talking about it, and people were afraid to talk about it. They were scared to death. This is how, Mr. and Mrs. America, this is how I approach what I do. That is, to tell you what I know to be true. And let the chips fall where they may. And not tell you once, but tell you a lot. In order to push this into the mainstream, in order to push this into our culture so people understand what we're confronting. This is why in May and June, when I decided to take on Tucker Carlson and Steve Bannon and others, names I can't even remember, I was told you might not want to do that. These are very powerful people. I said, they're not powerful, they're bullies. They've got very niche audiences. They're bullies. And they're destroying our youth. They're brainwashing our youth. They're destroying MAGA. They're destroying the Republican Party, which is the only party that stands in front of the Democrat Party. They are constantly stabbing the president in the back. They are anti-Semites. They are Christian bashers. Somebody's got to stand up to them. And this is what happened. And this is why it had to happen. I could be wrong, but I'm very excited, at least from my perspective, that so many people now feel very comfortable in taking these people on. Not enough. Everybody should. We have top-level Republicans who sit silently or coddle these people. That cannot be tolerated. Some of them expect to be president or vice president or senator or congressman. No. If you don't have the guts, the moral clarity to stand up to people who are literally attacking our foundational principles that make this country great, then you're not a leader. And God knows you shouldn't be in that position. And there are people who can be leaders and should be in that position. I hope this makes sense. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Folks, I have a question for you. Do you believe America's best days are still ahead? With the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence coming up in less than a year, my friends at the Heritage Foundation are taking stock of the current situation, and they need your input. They've launched a survey on America's future to gauge how Americans feel right now about where we are as a nation and where we're headed in the next 250 years. You know, for decades, your American values have been under attack, but now, with President Trump's administration in office, we have an opportunity to turn the tide and usher in a new golden age for America. But the Heritage Foundation needs to hear from you. What policies do patriots like you most care about? What do you believe are the defining principles of America? What legacy do you believe we should pass on to the next generation? Please visit heritage.org/Levin today and share your feedback and help shape the future of America. That's heritage.org/LEVIN. Paid for by the Heritage Foundation. I thought it important as a general matter, but also given the season, to get into this a little bit. And next time I'm going to get into another aspect of this. And that aspect is going to be, why was the Republican Party founded? How did it come to be? How did the Republican Party come to be? I mean, it's hard to create a new political party. And who are we as Republicans? What is our history? What is our ancestral foundation, if you will? And so, this hour I've talked about the founding period, Judeo-Christian belief system, and how did that manifest itself? in the 1850s and beyond. This is very, very important because we need to understand who we are, how we came to be, why we are as we are. Because otherwise, the Svengalis, the frauds, the reprobates are going to tear this country apart. Because they're making statements that are untrue. They're promoting ideas that are perverse. It's not who we are. And so, as an example, to be an anti-Semite is to attack the Judeo-Christian foundations of the nation. And this is why I've said, how many years? That if you hate America, you hate Israel, and if you hate Israel, you hate America. I'm not talking about every policy. That is not the point. And the debate isn't over every policy. The debate over is whether or not the Jews have a right to survive and to exist in their ancient homeland. The founders would say, why is that even a debate? But again, keep in mind, when you attack Jews, the anti-Semitism, you're attacking the Judeo-Christian belief system. You're attacking Americanism. That is exactly what you're doing. Now, I know the bigots and the Jew haters will say, see that? See that? See what? That's our history. That book on your night table, that Bible, that's the history of mankind, right there. I didn't make it up. I will continue as we go into the new year and the remaining 4 years I have on radio. I will continue to do what I've done this year and every other year. You've got to be willing to learn your history. You've got to be willing to promote your history. And most of all, you've got to be willing to defend your history. If you abandon your history, you wind up with sickening arguments about how the Third Reich is misunderstood, how Hitler really wasn't the bad guy, it was Churchill, and that we were fighting on the wrong side, that Hitler was actually a good Christian man, and that it's not possible that he slaughtered all those people, including the Jews. It's not possible. These liars, these bigots, they're relying on ignorance. And I'm relying on you, Mr. and Mrs. America, your intelligence, your patriotism, and that you'll pass on what we discuss to your children and grandchildren. Big hour next. We'll be right back. This segment of the podcast is exclusively sponsored by Pure Talk. Pure Talk offers great coverage and can save your family money on your wireless bill every single month. Go to puretalk.com to find the plan that's right for you. Thank you again for listening, and thank you so much for this sponsorship, Pure Talk.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, America. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. By the way, I'm very, very saddened that Lee Stefanik has decided not to run the Republican primary for governor of New York. I haven't spoken to her. I felt she was the best chance for the Republicans to take the governorship and, you know, try to neutralize Mondami and really rebuild at the state level the Republican Party, because she's a very charismatic, intelligent, not just a force in New York, but nationwide. Then this guy in Long Island, he decided to run, executive director, I guess he is. What is he? An executive. And what's his name? Blakeman. I met him in passing. He's kind of a rhino. He's had people contact me to put him on radio. I'm not putting him on radio. He should not have jumped into this race. And Elise Stefanik in her statement said, look, I'm a mother. I don't mind spending time running against, Democrats in a general election, but to spend so much time away from my family to run in a Republican primary just doesn't make sense. And she's right. And I was hoping President Trump would endorse her right out of the box. He said he likes both candidates, but she's clearly the most conservative, the most effective, the most well-known, and she has the best shot. And this other guy, I really don't want his people bothering me. There are other hosts that they can talk to. I know Sid likes him and so forth, but other people can. I'm not interested. And we'll leave it at that. All right, now I want to get into the Republican Party. We spent the first hour talking about our founding. Again, very truncated, but that's the nature of the beast here. Very, very truncated. Your country, your history, why it's so fantastic, why the Judeo-Christian values are so fantastic, why they create a civil society where all people can live in tranquility and unity and peace while holding their own beliefs, yet assimilating into the culture. It's an experiment like no other on the face of the earth. And there are people here trying to destroy it. Okay, I'm not going to repeat what I said the first hour. Now this hour, your Republican Party. There's been a lot said about the Republican Party, especially by Democrats, leftists, phony historians, and so forth. They've tried to smear the Republican Party, slime the Republican Party, because they want power, or they're radical leftists, or whatever the reason. First of all, let's start at the beginning, in 1854. What happened in 1854? What happened? Congress passed something called the Kansas-Nebraska Act. I'm doing this by memory, but I think I know what I'm doing here. And so what that meant is the people in the new territories would decide if they wanted slavery or not. They would vote. Congress would no longer determine it. Now, what that meant was the Missouri Compromise, for all intents and purposes, no longer existed. And the Missouri Compromise provided geographic limitations on the spread of slavery into new territories. And so the concern was that the Kansas-Nebraska Act of 1854 would allow slavery to expand where previously it couldn't. And there were riots over this, there was bloodshed over this, and so forth and so on. Now, there was no Republican Party at this point, but there were disparate parties, disparate political elements who were abolitionists, who were anti-slavery, different groups. And they couldn't win separately. And they had different approaches to the issue of eliminating slavery. But they understood that they needed to figure out how to come together. These various abolitionists and abolitionist groups. The anti-slavery groups. If they were going to beat the pro-slavery party, which was the Democrat Party. And so what happened? The birth of the Republican Party. It came out of the Kansas-Nebraska Act. And the birth of the Republican Party, what happened is the opponents of this Kansas-Nebraska Act, they met in Ripon, Wisconsin. And this is where it's believed generally the Republican Party was born. And it was a meeting held by several Whigs because the Whig Party was dying, the Free Soilers, certain Democrats, and they met in Ripon, 1854. Now, that meeting was called by Major Alvin E. Beauvais. Now, he was, and I remember this guy, studying this guy, a prominent Whig. And a few years earlier, he met Horace Greeley, a famous publisher, who was an abolitionist. And they had discussed the creation of a new party. And so in 1854, in Ripon, they passed a resolution to form a new party to oppose the Kansas-Nebraska Act. And that resolution said that they would call the new party the Republican Party. And that's what happened. And on March 20, 1854, or thereabouts, the exact date can't be known, the Republican Party was formed. Some have said it was July 6th, 1854. It doesn't really matter. Now, this new Republican Party held its first formal convention in Jackson, Mississippi. Held outdoors. I would argue that's probably the formal birthplace of the Republican Party. And so these coalitions came together. And in 1855, the Republicans were actually making some progress in the states. States like Massachusetts. Massachusetts, they actually elected the Speaker of the House. Excuse me. Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Now, this wasn't an immediate success. Obviously, it takes time, and it did take time. Now, the problem the Republicans had was there were still people committed to the Whig Party and so forth and so on, and they weren't prepared to move to the new party, but slowly but surely they did. They won a big victory in Ohio. They gained the support of some of the party bosses, the Whig Party bosses. They gained the support of a senator whose name you may have heard of, William Seward. The former Whigs in New York joined the Republican Party. They abandoned the Whig Party. And their strength was growing. There was a small movement of anti-slavery Democrats. They became Republicans. And they all united to try and stop the spread of slavery in the territories. They had a convention in 1856. And they nominated a guy for president. You may have heard of him, John Fremont. This John Fremont was a very famous explorer. He was opposed to slavery. He won the Republican nomination. They were able to pull together support from some of the holdout Whigs and some of the so-called holdout know-nothings. And what happened was in 1856, Fremont was running against James Buchanan. He was the Democrat. He, by the way, the worst president in American history, he and Biden. He was running against him primarily, and Fillmore, but I don't need to get into him. And it was really pretty stunning. Here is this new party with their first nominee, John Fremont. And what happens? Buchanan gets 1.8 million votes. Fremont gets 1.3 million votes. Buchanan gets, now I'm looking this up, 174 electoral college votes. Fremont gets 114. That was considered really a massive showing for the Republicans because it's a brand new party. At that point, the South knew they had something to fear. The Democrats, pro-slavery Southerners, not all of them were pro-slavery, by the way. They knew that they had a problem with this Republican Party. And so the party grew rapidly between 1856 and 1860. In fact, so rapidly that it won the House of Representatives. All almost all the Whigs and the know-nothings came over to the Republican Party. And then what was happening is some of these party bosses were moving over to the Republican Party. Some of the party leaders of these other parties were moving over to the Republican Party. It was sort of a juggernaut. A juggernaut. Now, they did embrace the most radical of the abolitionists, but it was an abolitionist party. And so, what happens? The country becomes more sectionalized, comes to a head. In the earliest days of the Civil War, the outbreak of the Civil War follows the election of 1860 of a man by the name of Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln was not expected to become the Republican nominee. He didn't come to the convention with the belief that he would become the Republican nominee, but he did come to the convention with some support. And in the end, he was the nominee by a plurality of the vote. And the rest is history. You Republicans out there, this is your history. This is your history. And it's more than that. The first Civil Rights Act in American history was 1866, pushed through the Congress after the Civil War by the Republicans. The 13th, 14th, 15th Amendments, the post-Civil War amendments, freeing the slaves, giving the slaves equal protection and due process, giving the slaves the right to vote, the former slaves, I should say, an absolute right to citizenship. All pushed by Republicans, amending the Constitution. Another Civil Rights Act in 1875. You had the Civil Rights Act of 1957 under Eisenhower. The Civil Rights Act of 1960 under Eisenhower. The Civil Rights Act of 1964. Lyndon Johnson, yes, but the Republicans were the ones that pushed it across with huge majorities in the House and the Senate. The Civil Rights Act of 1965, often called the Voting Rights Act, that would pass. But for the Republicans, it would have been stopped by the Democrats. All right, I want to put a bookmark right there. Keep this in mind. I'm telling you all this for a reason. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
As a consumer, you can carry the success or failure of businesses in the palm of your hand. Their success can depend on your decision to spend money with them or their competitor. Well, my friends at Pure Talk would like to say thank you from the bottom of their hearts for choosing Pure Talk for your wireless needs. Because of you, they've had a record-breaking year. Because of your generosity through their Roundup for Charity program, they've been able to donate over $500,000 to America's Warrior Partnership, who stands on the front lines of helping to prevent veteran suicide. Your patronage has allowed Pure Talk to donate 1,000 hand-sewn Made in America flags to your fellow veterans. And when you choose Pure Talk as your wireless provider, you help Pure Talk support American jobs right here in our country. Like I said, as a consumer, you have the power to make or break companies. And with the money the big wireless guys throw around on advertising, you're inundated with offers everywhere you look. So from everyone in the Pure Talk family, thank you for your trust, and God bless you. America wouldn't be the great land it is without the Republican Party. It would not be. Slavery would have persisted. I don't think forever, but it would have persisted. All these civil rights acts that were passed, that the Democrats take credit for, never would have happened. Never would have happened. See, the party is built on the foundational principles of the country. This is why sometimes I get very furious with individuals in the party who act more like Democrats and Republicans. They should be proud of our founding principles, which I term and have coined the phrase constitutional conservatism over the decades. It's constitutional conservatism. This is who we are. This is what we believe. The country would be a much different place. It'd be an awful place. Be a dark place. Be a lawless place. And so we battle over the airwaves here. We battle. You and me. We take elections seriously. We talk about them. On election night, we're here. You, Mr. and Mrs. America, and me, trying to get out the vote to make sure that we save this grand republic. We want the borders secured. We want assimilation. We want our history taught, our actual history, the good, the bad, and the ugly. We want people in the country who will embrace the country and love our ideals. But again, I have to turn back to one of the great threats, one of the cancers, and that is Tucker Carlson, and he's not the only one. Fuentes, Bannon, others. They talk about destroying the Republican Party. Destroying the Republican Party. Not strengthening it. Not trying to ensure that its founding principles are actually practiced and instituted, but destroying the Republican Party as they wish to destroy the Judeo-Christian foundational principles that underlay our nation. They wish to destroy the Republican Party. Now, they don't say the Republican establishment. They say the Republican Party. You and I, we've had battles with the Republican establishment for decades. Important battles. We want conservatives to be our nominees. We want conservatives who promote our principles to run in general elections to defeat the Democrats. As Reagan said, not pastel colors, bold colors. And then when you look at how conservatives govern, perfect example, Ron DeSantis. And there are others. Others, Ted Cruz. And there are more, many more. You can see the quality of life. You can see how important it is. Free states still versus dark blue dying states. They want to kill the party of Lincoln, the party of Theodore Roosevelt, the party of Coolidge, the party of Eisenhower, the party of Reagan, and the party of Trump. And replace it with what? More when I return. As a consumer, you can carry the success or failure of businesses in the palm of your hand. Their success can depend on your decision to spend money with them or their competitor. Well, my friends at Pure Talk would like to say thank you from the bottom of their hearts for choosing Pure Talk for your wireless needs. Because of you, they've had a record-breaking year. Because of your generosity through their Roundup for Charity program, they've been able to donate over $500,000 to America's Warrior Partnership, who stands on the front lines of helping to prevent veteran suicide. Your patronage has allowed Pure Talk to donate 1,000 hand-sewed Made in America flags to your fellow veterans. And when you choose Pure Talk as your wireless provider, you help Pure Talk support American jobs right here in our country. Like I said, as a consumer, you have the power to make or break companies. And with the money the big wireless guys throw around on advertising, you're inundated with offers everywhere you look. So from everyone in the Pure Talk family, thank you for your trust, and God bless you.
The Mike Levin Show. This is the home of the July 4th Americans. And you can call at 877-381-3811.
This is our last show of the year as we gear up for the new year and new radio programs and exciting content. I look very much forward to being with you on all of our wonderful affiliates, wonderful satellite, Sirius XM satellite, all of the other wonderful platforms out there. Very excited. And we'll have some exciting news for you as well. But enjoy the time off, enjoy the holidays with family. That's what this is all about. So this Republican Party, we make the Republican Party what we want it to be. Now you might say, no, we don't. All these decisions are washed. And the Republican Party, like other parties, is a very complex party. It starts at the bottom. Committee men and committee women, precinct workers, ward leaders. You have town, city, county chairmen. They have state conventions and state meetings. I've seen them. I've been to them. Then, of course, as the matter moves to federal elections and policies, the party moves in that direction too. And so you can be a part of it if you wish. You can try and have an impact. We have tremendously patriotic citizens who run for these positions, and they run for these positions as constitutional conservatives. And they can win, and many times they do. But why would we want to destroy the Republican Party and replace it with what? Another one of these fringe parties or another minority party that can't win anything except ensure that the Democrat Party, which is Marxist, Islamist, radical, America-hating, that party controls all levers of power? Because if that party gets in again, and it's able to do so, it's going to destroy the Supreme Court, turning it into a ideological Politburo of their liking. They're going to destroy the Electoral College, so basically 11 of the most populated states, mostly Democrat states, will control the Electoral College. Can you imagine what the border will look like? More influx of illegal aliens? Bigger influx. And if the court doesn't do the right thing on birthright citizenship, country's over. You can see the hordes coming in from all other parts of the world that have no intention of being assimilated into our country. Islamists, other cultures. America can't survive that. If we lose our Judeo-Christian belief and value system, it's over. It's over. If the Republican Party is destroyed, it's over. There's nothing to stand in the way of the Democrat Party. So again, when we have these grifters who self-identify as influencers, and some of them have podcasts, whether otherwise online, various aspects of social media, who push this stuff about Judaism, about Christianity, about how bad America is, about how good other countries are, how wise Sharia law is, Islamism is, who will platform and promote bigots and racists, Christian bashers and anti-Semites. These people are poison. They're a cancer on a body politic. They are in the Democrat Party, in an element within the Republican Party. But I hesitate to say that, since they hate the Republican Party and don't really believe in the Republican Party. So let me ask you this question, Mr. and Mrs. America. Why are not more Republican leaders speaking out against these miscreants and malcontents? Why is that? I asked you this the first hour, about these people attacking our founding, attacking the very foundations of our country. Why are there not more Republican leaders condemning them often and condemning them by name? Why did it have to start with me? Then other talk show hosts, podcasters, quote-unquote influencers. Now, I know why it had to start with me, but it should really be more spontaneous, and it should really be massive, the response to this, because it is an attack on our society, it's an attack on our history, just as much as it is from the left. Just as much as it is from the left. These people are racists, They are bigots. They are Christian bashers. They are Jew haters. Our party was formed to eliminate slavery, the enslavement of black people. That was the basis for the formation and the foundation of the Republican Party. That was it. And so when we have these people trashing people because the color of their skin, you and I don't do that. We don't believe in that. We reject it. Trashing people. A civil war was fought over with over 700,000 casualties. And these losers who've done nothing for this country, absolutely nothing, just dismiss it. And dismiss the men and women who fought Hitler. Just dismiss them. And dismiss the founding. And point to Qatar with 330,000 so-called citizens as an example. It should be easy to condemn them. It shouldn't take a lot of thought. It should be intuitive. It should be reflexive to condemn them. Are all of our leaders condemning them? No. Some of them are coddling them. Some of our leaders call these people their friends. Some of our so-called leaders are silent. They just don't want to get involved. Silent. They don't want to get involved. Coddling. Friends. In which case we need new leaders. What I try to do online, look, I'm not an internet animal. They're all over there. Look at this ratio. He doesn't have a ratio. I don't even know what a ratio is. That's not where most of my audience comes from. That's not where I live. We're going to deal with this in some way. And I'm going to talk about that when we come back.
Mark Levin.
As a consumer, you can carry the success or failure of businesses in the palm of your hand. Their success can depend on your decision to spend money with them or their competitor. Well, my friends at Pure Talk would like to say thank you from the bottom of their hearts for choosing Pure Talk for your wireless needs. Because of you, they've had a record-breaking year. Because of your generosity through their Roundup for Charity program, they've been able to donate over $500,000 to America's Warrior Partnership, who stands on the front lines of helping to prevent veteran suicide. Your patronage has allowed Pure Talk to donate 1,000 hand-sewn Made in America flags to your fellow veterans. And when you choose Pure Talk as your wireless provider, you help Pure Talk support American jobs right here in our country. Like I said, as a consumer, you have the power to make or break companies. And with the money the big wireless guys throw around on advertising, you're inundated with offers everywhere you look. So from everyone in the Pure Talk family, thank you for your trust, and God bless you. You know, folks, there's always going to be a percentage of the population that's easily bamboozled. And that's what these grifters are hoping for. And also our youth. Our youth are being brainwashed by the teachers' unions, and then if they go to college, they're being brainwashed by the Marxist Islamist faculty. They watch a lot of TV. They're being brainwashed by the media. So it's a bad scene. It's a bad scene. Now, the grifters of whom I speak, the Carlsons and his ilk, they have a system in place, or an approach in place. And they'll tell, especially the young men who are in their audience, that you don't have a chance to make it. You'll never be successful. Not because of you, but because of the system. We've talked about this for a long time now. And I talked about it last month at some length, but I want to underscore the point. They will stereotype these young men, as incapable of doing anything. They can't buy a house. They're too expensive. They can't get a job for 1,000 reasons. They want these young people, especially young men, angry. They want them to reject our country, our society. And so they appeal to them this way, and they want to do what else? They want to create hate and jealousy. We saw this in the 1930s, by the way, with the fascists. These people, to me, are neo-fascists. Not exactly the same, but bad enough in America. Rather than promoting, hard work, opportunity, as I've said before, when we've had young people call this program and say, woe is me, there's not enough attention paid on me. I say, folks, there's more attention paid on men, young men, women, young women than ever before by the government. That's the problem. Your so-called salvation is found outside the government. In your own soul and mind and heart. Your own motivation, your own character. And so now I hear people using the same phrases. Don't you, Mr. Perdue? Get off your ass and do something. And that's what you need to do. Do something. Something leads to something else. It always does. And when you look at great people, most of them, they don't hit grand slams right out of the park. I've talked about my dear friend, so much of a friend like a brother, Rush Limbaugh. He was fired 7 times and became the greatest broadcaster in history. And he's not the only one. You have book writers who were rejected over and over and over again. And finally, they were able to publish a book considered some of the greatest authors ever. You have candidates who've run multiple times, not to the point of being buffoonish, but multiple times. Reagan sought the presidency, the Republican nomination, 3 times. Donald Trump, he sought various nominations over the course of his career. You have the greatest of businessmen, many of whom failed, many of whom went broke before they came back again. When you look at what a fantastic society this is, with a fantastic economic system, you can see people who are down and out, how they found themselves, how they created opportunities for themselves. They didn't accept this woe is me mentality. Every day they got up and did something towards something that interests them. And if they didn't find something that interests them, they still did something because they might find something that interests them. That needs to be the mentality, not the woe is me mentality. And yet that's what these grifters promote. They want animosity. They want people at each other's throats. I've also talked about, but I want to underscore, and there's a great piece at what is it called? Substack. I keep calling it Subtrack, but that wouldn't work. Substack by my friend John Hybush, about the mentality of these podcasters. Not all, of course, but these in particular. And he's exactly right. It's something I've been talking about too. They make money. The more upset people are, the more downtrodden they think they are, the more impoverished they think they are, the more they listen to these people. The more they're filled with hate, bigotry, racism, Jew hatred, Christian hatred, and then self-hatred and America hatred, the more these podcasters profit, literally profit. Again, not all, but you know which ones I'm talking about. The Power Hour, the last hour of the year for this program, in just a few minutes. I'll be right back.
broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, America. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. Let's see here, Mr. Producer. Let us go all the way to cut 18. Cut 18. I'm a big fan of Kayleigh McEnany, and I'm very pleased, really, that she has a show on Fox, her own show. She's very worthy of it. And I kind of used to keep in touch, not so much anymore, just because I'm busy in hell, and I'm sure she's busy as hell too, plus has kids. But that's not the point. I want you to listen to something she said on Fox today, because it's very important that we understand. You and me, and we do. We're not into this coronation stuff. We're not a king and a queen, monarchy, government. We saw what happened, the coronation of the Democrat candidate last time around. Coronations are not good things, particularly for the presidency. You have to earn it. You have to go through the primary process. I happen to like challenges for the primary process. It brings out the best in people and sometimes the worst. And you might as well get it resolved during the primary, because you don't want to resolve it during the general election and then turn the country over to the Democrats. My desire, I wrote an entire book, The Democrat Party Hates America, and it does. And they are filled with lunatics, and we have got to defeat them. We have got to defeat them. And you defeat them with the best candidate. In my view, the best constitutional conservative candidate. And you know what's interesting? We have several. Several. I heard Erica Kirk. She announced that she's going to be supporting the vice president, something that she pointed out that Charlie would have wanted her to do. And that's perfectly fine by me. I heard the Secretary of State said that if the vice president wants to be president, he will immediately endorse him. There's nothing wrong with this. I expect this. That's okay. But I want to see some competition. I want to see some debates. I want to see that whomever the nominee is, and it may well be Vance, that they've been put to the test in ways they haven't been before. Very important. Very, very important. Kamala Harris was not. She was failed from day one, and she may not have been the nominee, but for the fact that Democrats coronated her. Right? Now, I understand that if you have a first-term president who's running for a second term, not so much a coronation, but the loyalty that's involved there. I get that. I get that. But when it's an open seat, I think the competition is a good thing. That's why we have primaries. That's why we have primaries. And may the best man or woman win. And we'll have primaries again. And we will. Here's Kayleigh McEnany on Fox News today. Cut 18, go.
Kayleigh, it's interesting to see this polling, and it's, very early, obviously, but it showed this week AOC a couple of points ahead of J.D. Vance. What do you think about this early endorsement that Erica Kirk has made?
By the way, that's Martha McGowan, and she is McCullum, I'm sorry. One of the great journalists in the country. Absolutely is. Absolutely is. Fantastic. Go ahead.
Casting her support and her commitment to him for 2028.
It's a powerful endorsement. Our own Fox News voter analysis shows that from 2020 to 2024, President Trump had an 11-point gain among young people. That was in no small part due to Turning Point USA. Turning Point Action, they are on the ground. They have door knockers. So to have that kind of endorsement heading into a primary, it puts a tailwind behind you. I would have a word of caution for the party, though. I think it's very important that the Republican Party have a competitive primary. It makes you stronger. It makes you tougher. We see how much weaker, in my opinion, the left was by not having a primary, having an endorsed candidate with 107 days to run. I hope we have that competitive primary, but J.D. Vance, a huge leg up with an endorsement here from Turning Point.
And so, ladies and gentlemen, endorsements are fine. But we want to draw our own conclusions and use our own judgment, don't we? I think we do. I don't know who's going to run. Nobody's told me they're going to run. The vice president hasn't told me. Various governors haven't told me. Various senators haven't told me. I just know we have some very, very strong people. Conservatives. Very strong. The other thing is, who can win? Who can bring the Republican Party together? Where's their allegiance, if they have one? And then you'll want to know who supports them, what kind of attention they draw, and by whom, and why. That's going to be all very important. This battle you see, I won't say among conservatives or MAGA. The media have it wrong. Bannon is not a conservative. He's not MAGA. Megyn Kelly's not a conservative. She's not MAGA. Nick Fuentes is not a conservative. He's not MAGA. Carlson's not a conservative. He's more of a Marxist Islamist, and he's certainly not MAGA. Who are those people going to support? I'm just curious. I'd like to know. Don't you think that would be interesting, Mr. Producer? And, again, we'll get to see how they conduct themselves in a debate. I think that's important because they're going to have to debate in the general election. I think Kayleigh McEnany's 100% correct. I really do. And Ben Shapiro was at Turning Point USA. AmFest yesterday was fantastic. We've got a lot of strong, smart, solid, constitutional conservatives out there. We really do. And I'm proud of them. And I had one on last night. Josh Hammer and Ben Shapiro. Just fantastic. There are others too. But Ben brought the house down. And Carlson was there, made an ass out of himself. He was embarrassing. He's more and more embarrassing as he gets more and more kooky. Cut 16, Mr. Producer, go.
We have a duty to take responsibility for what we say and do. If we hire awful people, we're responsible for that. I have some experience there, as you might suspect. That means that if we offer a guest for your viewing, we owe it to you to ask the kinds of questions that actually get at the truth. If we agree with the guest, that's fine, but we should own it. So, for example, if you host a Hitler apologist, Nazi-loving, anti-American piece of refuse like Nick Fuentes, you know, the Nick Fuentes who said that the Vice President of the United States is a, quote, fat gay race traitor married to a Jeet. The person who said that Charlie Kirk was a, quote, retarded idiot. The person who said, and pardon my language here, it's his quote, that he, quote, took Turning Point USA and f***ed it, and that's why it's filled with groypers. If you have that person on your show and you proceed to glaze him, you ought to own it. There is a reason that Charlie Kirk despised Nick Fuentes, and indeed even chided Dinesh D'Souza for debating him. He knew that Nick Fuentes is an evil troll, and that building him up is an act of moral imbecility. And that is precisely what Tucker Carlson did. He built Nick Fuentes up. And he ought to take responsibility for that, just as he ought to take responsibility for glazing pornographer and alleged sex trafficker Andrew Tate, or for mainstreaming fake historian and pseudo-Nazi apologist Daryl Cooper as America's best and most honest popular historian. Hosts are indeed responsible for the guests they choose and the questions they ask those guests.
There you are. And that would apply, of course, to Megyn Kelly and her weird association of sorts with Candace Owens. And, of course, Tucker Carlson. It's not that I used to like her or respect her. I didn't know her. I had nothing against her. But now I just dismiss her. She will go down in history for what she has said and what she does. And I'm not impressed by people, excuse me, who are constantly using their podcast to drop F-bombs. She's a mother. She's a wife. And she just drops these F-bombs like she's a drunken sailor. It's grotesque to me. Is that supposed to show us you're cool? You're smart? I also love these people. They're in their 50s. I'm in my 60s, and they seem to think they're hip. They're hip, you know. We're not boomers or anything. I love that, too. Boomers, you mean who helped build America? Who built the world? Yeah, we're boomers, whatever, boomer. These nomenclatures are very bizarre, if you ask me. But I'm very proud of Ben, very proud of Josh, very proud of my stepson, David, very proud of many, many young people who are out there making a difference, who love this country, who are promoting this country. It's a great thing. It's a great thing. And I think they should be platformed more. They should be. And they will, and over time, they're great already. And over time, they're even going to be greater. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Two great Life, Liberty, and Levin shows this weekend, folks. Ted Cruz and Hans von Spakovsky, Saturday night, 8 p.m. Eastern. I hope you set your DVR. You know, you only have to set it once. And then you're set for good. And then Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern as well, we have Zuhdi Jasser and Joe Contra. Saturday focuses on birthright citizenship. It's back. It's before the Supreme Court. It is very, very important. It's crucial. And Sunday focuses on this issue of who are we? And who's trying to destroy this republic? I think you're going to find both fascinating. Set your DVR. Set it now. Set it tonight. And that way you'll always have it. Because I know the weekend gets busy and there's a lot of shopping that takes place and family events and so forth. So if you DVR the program, you don't have to give it a second thought. Marco Rubio at a press conference today. Here's what he had to say about Hamas. Cut 4, go.
Everyone wants peace. No one wants to return to a war. If Hamas is ever in a position in the future that they can threaten or attack Israel, you're not going to have peace. Okay? You're not going to convince anyone to invest money in Gaza if they believe another war is going to happen in 2 to 3 years. So I would just ask everyone to focus on what are the kind of weaponries and capabilities that Hamas would need in order to threaten or attack Israel as a baseline for what disarmament needs to look like. Because you're not going to have peace. If 2 years from now Hamas is launching rockets or killing Israelis or carrying out, God forbid, another 7th of October type terrorist attack and so forth, you're not going to have peace. So who's going to invest in a peace? Who's going to invest in rebuilding a place that's going to get destroyed again in a future war? So that's why disarmament is so critical. Now, what that entails, we're going to leave that to the technical teams to work on. It would have to be something, obviously, that they're willing to agree to, that our partners can push them and pressure them to agree to. It also has to be something that Israel agrees to. In order for that to work, both sides have to agree on it, and we need the space to do it. But that's the way to think about it, okay? You cannot have a Hamas that can threaten Israel in the future. If they can, you won't have peace. So that's the goal.
You know, he's one of the better people at explaining things and doing it in a straightforward and plain English way. That's out there, really. And that is black and white, and there he is. He's explaining it, and he's 100% correct. Now, you have some people say, we're spending too much time on foreign policy. Well, Trump spends a lot of time on everything. Everything. And he's fantastic for it. Let's check this out. Marco Rubio on foreign policy. Cut 3, go.
The foreign policy, the State Department is not its own government. Okay? The Secretary of State is not its own government. I'm appointed by the president, confirmed by the Senate, and then, or nominated by the president, confirmed by the Senate, and then appointed by the president. But at the end of the day, the person the people of the United States elected to be the president of the United States and the commander-in-chief is Donald J. Trump. That's who they elected. And my job, and the job of the people in our administration, is to implement the president's foreign policy. We provide advice, we provide counsel, but ultimately our job is to take what the president wants to do, come up with options for implementing the president's vision. That's my job today. When I was a senator, I represented the state of Florida. Today, I am the Secretary of State for Donald J. Trump, the President of the United States, and my job is to implement the president's foreign policy, provide advice, provide counsel, provide ideas, provide for opportunities and ways in which his foreign policy can be implemented. But in the end, our job is to implement that. And why people think that somehow foreign policy can be divorced from our republic? That's not the way our Constitution works. The Constitution does not say you elect the President of the United States and then you put in place a State Department to undermine the President if the person who's the Secretary of State doesn't agree with him. That's ridiculous. That's stupid, really. And I don't know why anybody would think that. So that's the job I have, and that's the job I'm proud to do. I think we've made a lot of progress. We have a lot more work to do.
There you go. Basics, the basics. Look at this from our friends at the New York Post, John Christensen. The Biden FBI and the Justice Department weighed campaign finance probe of Senator Kyrsten Sinema after she left the Democrat Party. You know, it amazes me how they keep attacking this administration for retribution, and yet look what that last administration did to Trump, did to the Trump people and the family, and look what they tried to do to a Democrat who turned independent. Biden was always my father could not stand by, as you know, we grew up around Philadelphia, and he was the senator from Delaware right across the way, and my dad could not stand Biden. See, he's a dumb guy. He's all this bravado and drama with this guy, just a complete joke. And I could not agree more. Officials in President Biden's Department of Justice and FBI considered opening a criminal investigation to then-Senator Kyrsten Sinema for purported campaign finance law violations months after she left the Democrat Party, according to emails reviewed by the Post. The communications reveal that a member of the DOJ's criminal division, a prosecutor in the then D.C. U.S. Attorney Matthew Graves' office, and FBI agents in the Bureau's Washington field office all discussed investigating her in February 2024, 14 months after she announced her change of party. You imagine that? And for what? For nothing. For nothing. It's the Democrats who are more like the old Stasi when it comes to going after political opponents. We'll be right back.
Nobody says it better than Mark Levin.
I'll go with what Mark Levin said, because nobody could say it better.
Call in now at 877-381-3811.
Okay, let's take some calls here. Brian, Clarion County, Pennsylvania, on the Mark Levin app. Go right ahead, please.
Oh, Mark, thank you so much. I just turned 63, and I'm very hip, and I think it's because I listen to your show.
Thank you.
My grandparents grew up in Germantown, and Mother worked at Pittman Dunn at Frankfurt Arsenal, and I love it when you talk about Philly.
I know all about that. Yeah.
I just wanted to mention, I hope I can be coherent, about how important it is when you talk about the threat to our country and our Christian Judeo tenets. And, with all this horror going on, like you were saying, that the hatred and the victimization and all like that, there's a leitmotif under all of this, and you come closest to mentioning it. And the way I see it, Marxism and Islamists are sort of almost beyond politics with their danger, and quite simply, they're satanic. because they're opposite of all we believe in America. We try to grow in righteousness even though we fail, and we try to help others. And these other doctrines, Mark, to me, seem to focus on conceit and everything is for yourself and get what you can and forget about other people. And if they don't think like you, destroy them. And I just see this as satanic. And I just hope that your viewers, your listeners, I know, we all know how important it is that you talk about this, because what we're seeing in this country is alarming. It's frightening, and I'm afraid of it.
You're a good man. I agree with everything you said, and I'm going to keep talking about it. And I've got to keep talking about it because I feel like we've lit a little fire under some people who are out there, but it's not big enough. People need to be able to speak about it. They should not be threatened or intimidated. Conservative talk radio needs to do a better job of promoting it. We have a problem with some of these podcasters who try to give it some kind of conservative patina when there is no conservative patina. And now they've turned it into attacking our country, attacking some of our great leaders, our founders. And I'm going to continue to stand in the gap here. I'm just going to do it because this is what I was born to do. This is what I was raised to do, and I'm going to keep doing it. Not because I'm Don Quixote, because I'm Mark Levin. That's what I do. Brian, thank you for your call. Excellent call. My best to your family. I appreciate it. And, this break, it's not only for family and friends and so forth, but this break is important because it re-energizes you. Doesn't it re-energize you, Mr. Producer? Back? That's right. And I always find that when the vacation period's over, the holiday period's over, I'm raring to go. I take a day here and there when I need to, or a couple days here or there. Often it's to help family and friends and things of that sort. But I never take like 2 weeks, and that's what we do when the holidays come around. Sometimes I wake up and I'm getting ready and I go, oh, wait a minute. But it's Thursday. You got it. Huh? Okay, no. Wait. There's radio. There's Life, Liberty, and Levin. No, actually, there's not. But we do have 2 great Life, Liberty, and Levins this weekend. Brand new shows. And I hope you'll check them out because, I'm greatly privileged to have that platform, at least for now, I suppose. But I'm greatly privileged to have it, and I very much appreciate it. There's great legal groups out there that are duking it out with these leftist organizations, with these slip and fall lawyers. I'm chairman emeritus of one, Landmark Legal Foundation. It's a fantastic group led by Pete Hutchison. He's just terrific. I've known him for 40 years. And they have a magnificent staff there. I should know I hired them. And Michael O'Neill and Matt Forays, these are great guys, and the others who work there. And they work every day, and they don't get all this attention and fame and so forth, and they're just fantastic. And there's several of these groups. But one of the ones that I also am quite fond of is America First Legal. And I've become really impressed with what they do. Gene Hamilton, their great leader. My wife works there as general counsel, so I hear a lot of the stuff that goes on. And by the way, not the behind-the-scenes stuff. Mark, what we're working on? Mark, what we're working on? Look at this case that we filed, and this one, because my wife is a great believer in what this organization does and a great contributor. So there's so many there, again, who are not famous. One day they will be, but who work their tails off. And here's a perfect example. America First Legal has filed a federal civil rights complaint with the U.S. Department of Education's Office for Civil Rights and the U.S. Department of Justice Civil Rights Division, calling for an immediate investigation into Cherry Creek School District in Greenwood Village, Colorado, for violations of Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. The complaint exposes a district-wide system of race-based decision-making that has replaced equal treatment with ideological favoritism. Whistleblower recordings and insider accounts reveal that the school district officials, including those at Campus Middle School, that's the name of the school, the district's equity department, who the hell is an equity department, relabeled disruptive misconduct by a minority student as culturally appropriate, blamed staff concerns on the whiteness of the school, and then used the racial framing to override school-level discipline and shield the student from consequences. You know what that is? That's sick. In one recording, staff described being told that conduct they would normally classify as disrespectful, disruptive, and defiant was instead culturally appropriate, and that the problem was educators' whiteness for viewing it in a punitive way. As staff put it, this racial framework left them with no ability to enforce anything because district-level equity intervention, pneumonia, repeatedly stepped in to override consequences. As a result, AFL's complaint alleges school district officials and its equity department used race as a determining factor in student discipline and personnel decisions, direct violation of federal civil rights laws, overrode school-level discipline to protect certain students from consequences, and directed staff not to discuss discipline decisions electronically, warning this is going to get ugly if exposed publicly. And so let's expose it publicly and give it the air cover it deserves. We're talking about where? Let's see. We're talking about the school district called the Cherry Creek School District, the Cherry Creek School District in Greenwood Village, Colorado, violating federal civil rights laws. That's the allegation, and it looks like a strong allegation. Basically, this was an African-American student who they would not punish because the problem was the whiteness of the teachers, not the conduct of the student. What do you think about that, Mr. Producer? Insane. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Well, you know, folks, this is the last 5 minutes of the radio program for 2025. Was 2025 a good year? Yes and no. Like most years, 2026 will be yes and no. Hopefully more yes than no. Maybe I have a weird view of life. You know, we all try to do the best we can, or most of us do. We try to be happy, but, you know, sometimes it's tough. Somebody might say something or do something, and human beings have moods. And there's a lot of evil out there. But my view is this. Life is tough. But life is beautiful. When you really start thinking about it, it's really quite amazing. Who am I? How did I get here? Well, we know how we got here, but that's not the point. Why me? Why me? We have as many questions about that sort of thing as we do about death, don't we? What happens to us afterwards? Now, some people have a very strong view. They know. I got it. But I go back and forth between my faith and intellectualizing it, or kind of intellectualizing it, trying to figure it out. But there's certain things that are permanent and wonderful that so many people can agree on. Like times like this. Excuse me. Like your family, being with your family. If you don't have a family, maybe friends. If you don't have friends, well, there are places you can go and things you can do. I just make this point. I just want you all to have a wonderful Hanukkah and Christmas. I feel a tremendous connection and allegiance with my audience, you Levinites out there. You're great patriots. from all walks of life, from all parts of the country, all parts of the world. I am blessed, and I hope you are too. America, here we go. Seconds, honey. My wonderful wife is here. She wants to wish you all.
I wish every single member of the Mark Levin audience worldwide the happiest and most meaningful Hanukkah and Christmas and New Year's to all of you from all of us in the Levin house.
There she is. She's the best, isn't she? And I want to salute all you great Americans out there. Our family, our little doggies, have a fantastic few weeks. We'll see you. We'll be energized, onward and upward, and God bless you. See you next year, and God bless each and every one of you.